Welcome everybody to our Ending Neck Pain workshop. And if you're on this webinar, then there's a chance that you are one of the 8 out of 10 Americans that are struggling with neck pain right this minute as we speak. And some of those people, it's an acute one-off episode, but for many people, it's a chronic thing that's a consideration. And so tonight, we're going to cover not just what happens when you have neck pain, because you're all experiencing that when you do, but what is the cause of it? And if we can understand what is causing neck pain, then we can get to what the solutions are. And I'm going to show you what does work and what doesn't work and how things you're doing may be sabotaging your results. And I want to show you things you can do at home as well. So we're going to jump right into this because it's a big deal. And there's a lot more to neck pain than just being a pain in the neck, as they say. Sometimes when we use that word, oh, it's a pain in the neck, we kind of brush things off as annoying. But for some people, neck pain can be devastating and can really disrupt so much of their life. So we want to do a deep dive into this tonight so we can really uncover every aspect of it. And so then we can know how do we get our best results. And by the way, for many people that struggle with neck pain, they also find that they get headaches. Headaches are oftentimes associated with that. And so what we have found is, it's definitely true, but we have dedicated an entire workshop just to headaches. And so tonight we're going to focus on the neck. But if you struggle with headaches as well as neck trouble, or you know others that struggle with headaches, please join us next month, the last Wednesday of the month at 6:30 p.m. on the webinar all about headaches. All right. And if you do struggle with headaches and you are not sure if you're on our email list and you just want to make sure that you get notified, then just send us a text that says headache workshop, and we'll make sure that we get the link to you. And our text is 802-985-9850, as you can see there. So neck, we have to talk about our modern world and the fact that many people are struggling with neck pain, maybe more than ever before. And why is that? Because we have engineered a modern lifestyle that includes all of these technical devices that we use. So they even now have a designation, a diagnosis that is called tech neck. So if you are using a cell phone, raise your hand, right? And I can see some of you, so raise your hand if you use a cell phone, right? Okay, and then raise your hand if you think you're using that cell phone way too much, right? Yep. And then if everybody in your family also uses a cell phone, and even your kids are on phones and devices and tablets, right? And so we all are struggling with how to use this tool in the best way that serves us, that brings us so much convenience and so much information and so much, we can get things faster, but it also distracts us, and it also is affecting our health. And that's what I want to cover tonight. So it's a tool, and with any tool, it can have good parts to it, but it can also be misused and it can be harmful. And so I want you to understand tonight why it is so bad for us and how to avoid having it affect your health. Now, when we talk about tech neck, basically tech neck can lead to chronic neck problems, nerve problems, and even herniated or bulging discs. So it's a very real problem. And I know some of you have heard of the idea of sitting is the new smoking. Well, I will say that screens are the new crack cocaine as far as the addictions that we have to it and how much it can affect our lives and our health. And then there's another piece that we throw into this. Besides the use of devices, we now in our world, and not so much right now, but at any minute it could all come back. And there are some folks that are still, this is still a problem for them, and that is mask neck. Mask neck. Like that is actually a thing as well, because if you actually are wearing a mask, it actually obliterates, it covers up some of your field of vision, your peripheral field of vision that you would use. And so you actually have to bend your head forward more with a mask on to look at that device. So it can actually, the use of masks can exacerbate neck problems because of again, the biomechanics that are involved. So we already have a world that's been engineered against us as far as the use of devices, and now we add that to it and it can just compound it even more. So neck problems, what does it look like? What do I see in my office? Definitely, of course, people struggling with neck pain, but there's also the stiffness and the tightness. There's the lost range of motion. And I've seen you folks when I'm driving along, I know that there's a lot of people that have neck problems because as I'm driving, I see these cars that are just kind of floating over to the side. And what's happening? The drivers are not looking to see if it's safe. They're using their rear view mirrors. They're using the hope and pray approach to changing lanes, where they hope that their rear view mirror is capturing what they need to because their neck hurts and they can't turn it in order to safely look to see if there's anybody coming on either side of them. So the hope and pray approach to lane changing is a sign of someone that is struggling with their neck. And of course, it could lead to a motor vehicle accident, which is what is one of the causes of neck problems for many people. So now we've got a cycle going here. No, needless to say, there's a loss of range of motion that oftentimes does accompany neck problems. And with that loss of range of motion, the discs in between the bones, the discs are spacers that are located in between the vertebrae. And a disc does not have a really good blood supply to it. And so the only way that the disc can get nutrients in and can get toxins out is not from blood flow traveling back and forth and doing that the way most of the other parts of our body does. Instead, it acts like a sponge. So with a sponge, when you squeeze it, it pushes the water out. And when you release the sponge, it sucks the water back in. And so with a disc, that's the way the disc works to get nutrients in and toxins out. And we call that imbibition. Imbibition is that sucking in of fluids, almost like sucking it into a vacuum, or there's a pull to it. And then the squishing is the forcing out of the fluids. So discs will stay healthy from movement. Movement of the vertebrae is what then squishes and releases and keeps the disc healthy. So when there's a loss of range of motion and the muscles are strapping down that joint so it doesn't have that motion, now we lose the imbibition and it causes degenerative changes in the discs, and that leads to arthritic changes in that joint as well. Other people are struggling with popping and cracking. Just this morning, I had the chimney sweep at my office, and not my office, at my home, to get the chimney clean, ready for the fall. And don't you know, the son who's like there, you know, as the helper for the dad, and he cracks his neck. And I just said, hey, I'm a chiropractor. And he says, oh yeah, is that bad? And so many people ask me that question. And the answer to it, we're going to uncover later on as we continue with our program here. But I do want you to know that people that crack their neck just so they can get some relief, that's very common when people have neck problems. And that is something that can be associated with degenerative change in the neck. And then there's also upper extremity issues. So sometimes that pain or discomfort or tension is going into the shoulders. And then the next thing you know, you're getting a little numbness or tingling or weakness in the arms, or you're getting like trouble where your wrist isn't working as well, or you're getting the carpal tunnel, or you're getting the trigger finger, or the Raynaud's where you're getting some numbness and all kinds of things that can happen with the upper extremity. So it's so important that we do like really understand how far reaching anything to do with our neck is, because it actually does involve the upper extremity as well. So important piece there. And then of course, headaches is the other part that is often associated with. So that's what I see in the office, that it's really far reaching. And I will tell you that when I look at the research about neck problems, the most disturbing piece of research that I ever saw, still to this day, is in 2009. They did a study of children. They found that 9% of 10-year-olds actually have evidence of degenerative change starting. And a lot of it was in the neck. And so that's just very disturbing to me, because you would think children, right, degenerative change, arthritis, well, that's for, middle-aged and older folks. But no, we're actually starting to see it in younger and younger populations. So disturbing to me. And I will also tell you that as far as the upper extremity goes, 8 out of 9, maybe even close to 10%, close to 100% of the upper extremity issues that I encounter are actually caused by the neck. And headaches, 90% of the headaches are cervicogenic, meaning caused by the cervical spine or the neck. But then there's more to it than that. And we think of all of these things as, okay, that makes sense that, you can feel discomfort locally in the neck and maybe it radiates out. But the research is showing that other things are also associated with neck problems. Poor posture is associated with reductions in testosterone. So when we have neck problems, it's often associated with poor posture. And when we have poor posture, it's affecting testosterone levels. It's also reducing serotonin. Serotonin is the feel-good hormone, right? It increases cortisol. That's the stress hormone. And with all that, there comes a reduced feeling of power. So it actually can affect your mood, your outlook on life when you have poor posture. And this is so important because that starts to affect all aspects of our life when we're starting to be hit that way. And it reminded me when I read this study of somebody that came into the office. And by the way, if you are concerned about if you're actually experienced this reduced feelings of power, or you're worried about your hormonal levels and how they might be affected, feel free to just text us if you'd like to have a consult with us. And you can just text consult to our text number, and I'm happy to have my team set up a time where we can talk it down. So everybody's unique and has different scenarios. So if you're curious about your situation, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll see if we can help. All right. So anyway, I was saying that it reminded me of this comic strip with Charlie Brown. Here he is saying, "This is my depressed stance." And he's there talking to Peppermint Patty. And he says, when you're depressed, it makes a lot of difference how you stand. The worst thing you can do is straighten up and hold your head high, because then you'll start to feel better. And if you're going to get any joy out of being depressed, you've got to stand like this. So yeah, Charles Schultz had it so right on here, right? And Charlie Brown is just classically telling us what is so true for so many people, and that neck problems can be associated with poor posture, and that actually can affect our mood and our outlook on life. And so, there are people that come to my office and they are suffering from not just neck pain, but for example, Sandy, she was suffering from brain fog and chronic fatigue and upper back and neck. And she said she felt like she was twice her age. And so she had been going downhill. She was losing hope. She had seen a lot of different doctors and some other chiropractors, wasn't really getting relief. And so she came to see us. And so we did our full exam. I looked at what was going on. I gave her recommendations. She started our program, and very quickly she started to see the results. And not only did her neck pain improve, but she says the fog lifted. So her brain fog went away. She was able to get through her day without a nap, which meant that her energy was coming back and that chronic fatigue was going away. And the pain lessened a great deal. And she was just noticing improvements, and that were ongoing, that they kept getting better. Every time she came in, she saw another gain. And of course, our team is so great, and we just loved working with Sandy. And one of the things with Sandy also was that she actually was in so much pain when she first came to us that she usually liked to go on these bus trips over to New Hampshire to go shopping in the wintertime. And so just before Christmas. And she was really concerned, like she could not endure going on one of those bus trips because everything, the pain was so great and her exhaustion was so great. And so I'm happy to report that she was able to go on a bus trip that following winter. However, she also was snowshoeing that following winter, which was even more than she ever imagined she'd be doing. So she got so much more function back, and such a great quality of life improved with getting the chiropractic care that she needed and working together on what was going on, and doing the things that she needed to do as well that we recommended. So big success there for Sandy. So anytime that you have any symptoms at all, we really we like to reference it as a signal, a body signal. And so this whole program that we're doing throughout the year, is called the Body Signals Program, and we go condition specific every month. So this month it's on neck pain, next month it'll be on headaches, and so on. And so any time we have a symptom, right, it's there to tell us something. And it's the body's way of asking for help. And what do we do when our body is asking for help? It's really important to look at what we're doing, because if we don't understand the signals that our body is giving us, and we just try to mask it, like, oh, I've got some neck pain, give me some ibuprofen so I don't feel the pain anymore. Oftentimes, the communication from the body, they're signals that are telling us that we're heading in a certain direction. The symptoms are there to tell us that we're moving away from health. And if we mask those signals with medications, as Dr. Marcia Angel said, and she was the editor of the New England Journal of Medicine for about 20 years. Imagine the research that went in front of her. She said, you can never medicate your way out of a situation you've behaved your way into. You'll just feel better as you're getting worse. So oftentimes the most common conventional way of addressing a symptom is through a medication. Then you don't feel it anymore and you think you're all set. But actually, that symptom may have been a signal that your body was trying to communicate with you to get your attention so that you will make a change. So when you get a body signal, it's usually your body asking you to make a change. Now, to understand what kind of change you need to make, that's another story. And each signal may be asking something different of you, but I want to train you on how to learn to speak body, how to understand the signals that your body is giving you. And so neck pain is one of those signals. Numbness and tingling in the arm, it's one of those signals. Headaches, it's one of those signals. So I want to train you on that. And again, if we just understand, is our body smart or stupid? And I ask that question a lot of folks because I want them to really think about it. If their body is smart, then it's giving a signal. We want to pay attention to that signal. And all too often, people will agree with me, yeah, the body's smart. But as soon as the symptom comes up, they're saying, except right now, it doesn't know what it's doing. And so I better get some medication to make a change because my body is being stupid right now, giving me all this pain. And so if we really recognize that if the body is smart, even when it's sending us a signal that's uncomfortable, if it's smart, we better start paying attention to it. So again, if you're stifling those warning signs with drugs, then you're going to be in trouble because the next thing you know, it's not working anymore. Then you're taking stronger drugs. And I will tell you that pain medications are the gateway to the whole opioid epidemic. And that really destroys lives. And so we want to really start to think about what do we need to do to correct the cause rather than mask the signal. All right. And so understanding the idea of a body signal is so key. And now here's the next part, because oftentimes a body signal or a symptom is something that you're feeling. So when you feel something, it tells you, oh, maybe something's going on, but let's put it all in perspective. If we put this on an illness wellness continuum where we have premature death, so early death, like so low function that you're dying early, and on the other extreme is high level wellness, robust health. Right in the middle is what we call a neutral point, where you're not really sick, there's no symptoms going on, but you're not necessarily robustly healthy. And so this is the sick zone to the left and the healthy zone to the right, but in the middle is what we would call the not sick zone. And the not sick zone is not the same as being healthy. The not sick zone is also the not healthy zone, but it's the zone where you don't necessarily feel any symptoms yet. And you'll notice that the signs are something that show up before the symptoms. So a sign is something you can measure, like your blood pressure, your blood sugar, those kinds of things. So oftentimes there will be a sign that your body is losing function even before the pain or what you feel shows up. And the symptom is something that you feel. So the signs show up before the symptoms. And then if you get to the point where you've just tried to manage those symptoms for so long without actually correcting the cause, you're going to continue to lose function. And next thing you know, you're in a disability situation where you no longer can correct the symptoms. Now you're in disability and you're getting closer and closer to an earlier death. So this is a continuum, and everybody is going to be somewhere on this continuum, and nobody's standing still. Everybody's going to be moving in one direction or the other. And there's going to be a velocity to how fast you're moving in one direction or the other. And that velocity is determined by the cumulative lifestyle choices that you're making all day long. So if you're making lots of good choices, chances are you're going to be heading towards the right, towards robust health. But if you're just status quo, kind of living a conventional lifestyle, you will be moving in the wrong direction towards lower and lower function. So the symptoms are telling you in what direction you're heading, that you are now moving away from health. And I hope this graphic helps you to understand that. And so now if we do look at this idea of what you feel, because the symptom is what you feel, let's take a look at how the nervous system works. How do we feel things in our body, and how do we run function in our body? So everything in the body is controlled by the nervous system. And there are three parts to the central nervous system. There are the motor nerves, the autonomic nerves, and the sensory nerves. The motor nerves are the nerves that control our muscles and our movement. And so if we start to lose function in the motor nerves, we're going to see weakness, spasms, fatigue, and tightness. If we start to lose function in the autonomic nerves, those are the ones that control the automatic functions in the body, we're going to start to have trouble with the organs in the body. So it might be breathing problems, digestive problems, low energy, trouble with the sinuses, allergies, just as some examples. Now, the third part of the central nervous system is the sensory nerves. And the sensory nerves are what feel things. So whether we're feeling hot or cold, or feeling pain, or feeling where our body is in space, we call that proprioception, knowing where the body is in space. So I can look at my finger moving, but I can also not look at it, but I can sense that it is moving. And the same thing is true with our brain being able to sense where our body is in space. And so the control of our posture actually comes from the sensory nervous system. So that if we start to lean off to one side too much, we're going to get signals saying, whoa, you're going to fall over. And so then we'll get upright again because of the sensory nerves. So of these three parts of the central nervous system, the sensory nerves are carrying information from the body to the brain to tell the brain what's happening in the environment. And the motor and autonomic nerves are input, or it's information that's coming out from the brain, going to the body, that is running the muscles and running the organs. Now, although these look all three about the same size, the sensory nerves actually are only the ones that feel pain. It's only about 7 to 10% of the nervous system. So it's a very small part of the nervous system. And yet the nerves that are controlling function, they don't feel things, they run things. And so if you're basing your own assessment of your health on how you feel, you could be missing 90% of the nervous system that could have some disruption that's controlling the function in your body. So when we look at feeling versus function, if we go back to our last slide, this is looking at a range of health, which is really a range of function. And as we're losing function, we're moving towards early death. As we're getting healthier, we're gaining function. So when we look at this idea of feeling versus function, if we really wanted to assess accurately how healthy we are, we better be measuring function and not just feeling. Because if we're only looking at how you feel, then that's only 10% of the nervous system's job. Okay, so that is so important that we're actually able to measure function to then assess, are you actually truly robustly healthy, or are there things that are signs that are telling us that you're losing function? And so already just looking at the nervous system, this is a different way of thinking about health. And so we have to actually base our actions on how we think about things. And how we think about things is based on the premises that we have. So for some of you, you've only known, if I've got pain, I just have to go get a drug to help address that. And if that's the only premise that you're working from, then let's look at some other premises that may be helpful in how you're thinking about neck pain and what you can do about it. So a better premise to start with is first, that healthy is normal. It's normal to be healthy, and that neck pain is not normal. I actually had somebody in the office today who just said, yeah, I just thought everybody had like pains that would just, take them out, every now and then, or that you might have some background pain, or, or as you age, you're going to have pain, thinking that pain is normal. No, healthy is normal. Pain may be common, it may be the norm. 8 out of 10 people struggling with neck pain, you might call that the norm, but it's not normal. Healthy is normal, unhealthy is abnormal. And if you start from that, then you may start to pay more attention when you do have a body signal or symptom saying, oh, I'm moving away from health right now. This is not healthy normal. I'm moving away from that. Unhealthy, and unhealthy is not normal. The second premise, your body is smart. We already touched on this. So if you're thinking that your body is smart, then you have to know that at every moment in time, the body is smart. And so if the body is always smart, then do we really want to just mask and dampen down that signal, or do we want to pay attention to it? Now, this is another important piece here. The nervous system is the master system. So the brain is in charge of controlling everything. As long as the messages get from the brain through the spinal cord, out through the nerves, and back again without interference, you get to be healthy. But if there's anything that's disturbing that in that flow of messages, then we'll start to see breaking down and function in the body. So the nervous system is the master system that controls everything. Every tissue cell in your body has 3 to 9 nerve fibers going to it that's carrying the information back and forth to the brain and back again. And so all of those nerves are coming through your spine. So the brain sends the messages down the spinal cord, out through the nerves to go to every cell in your body and back. But that down the spine is the important part, up and down the spine. So the spine is the suit of armor that's protecting the spinal cord and the nervous system as it's going up and down. And then finally, another premise to recognize is that modern life is actually engineered to be completely unnaturally stressful. And that stress is coming at us in 3 dimensions: thoughts, toxins, and traumas. Thoughts, so that's the way most people think about stress. Deadlines, chaos, disorganization, never mind the big events that are stressful for us: loss of a loved one, loss of a job, even just moving. It might have some good things to it, but it can be very stressful to arrive in a new place and not know anybody and have to just navigate your way. So all kinds of things can be stressful thought-wise from events that have happened, but also in between those events, the ongoing stresses. So we like to think of things as macro stresses and micro stresses. The macro stresses are the big one-off events that occur. The micro stresses are the things that are happening in between those events that are ongoing. Now, toxins is another category of stress that oftentimes goes under the radar for people. Toxins are any kind of chemical stress that you're exposed to. So again, now and then people might be exposed to mercury or lead or asbestos or things like that. But we also know that on an ongoing basis, people are making unhealthy food choices. Medications, even if they save your life, they may have adverse side effects to them. And so the ongoing daily choices that we make could be actually cumulative in building up chemical stresses. And then if we look at traumas, sure, there are one-off events that occur: car accidents, sports injuries, slips and falls that occur. But in between those events, there are the micro stresses, and the most common one, of course, there's the macro traumas of falling or something like that, but the most common thing is the micro traumas. And the micro traumas for posture is what we mean by physical stresses that are micro traumas or micro stresses. And so, we oftentimes are told, don't sweat the small stuff. But let's talk about these micro traumas, what we might think of as the small stuff. But, small stuff, there are some small things that we do need to be concerned about. Things like little, coronaviruses or Lyme ticks or bullets or, things like those are small things, but they have a big concern. And so I want to actually put in the same category tech neck, as people think of it as a small thing, but it's very significant on how it can impact your health and your life. Postural stress associated with sitting in front of a computer monitor or in a handheld device, it's probably one of the most serious health threats that we have today. And it just is going unnoticed. It's under the radar. It's just been normalized. But it literally is, I would say it's a more severe pandemic. It's all over the globe. I mean, the people in Africa are on the plains, like they've all got their cell phones there. So the CDC tells us that that there are so many people that are experiencing tech neck, more and more and more, that it's in record numbers, and it's something is being recognized. And so what does it look like if we shift our posture? How exactly is it impacting us? So if you are holding your head right up over your center of gravity, so the center of the head is right over the center of the shoulder is right over the center of the hip is right over the center of the ankles. If you have that correct upright posture, then your 12-pound head is going to cost you 12 pounds of work to carry it around. As soon as you start to have the head go forward just a little bit, the weight of the head now is the equivalent of 32 pounds of work. So the 12-pound head is now costing you 32 pounds of work. And if you go forward even more, 42 pounds of work, the further out in front that it goes. So this is significant, because if you have these poor postural problems, poor posture habits, then it's going to lead to trouble. And so all these stresses, what do they lead to? They lead to something called subluxation. And subluxation is where the joints are misaligned, and that leads to soft tissue damage. That soft tissue damage leads to inflammation, which then is going to start irritating the nerve that's coming out from between the bones. When that nerve gets irritated, your smart body is going to take the muscles that usually would be moving that joint, and it's going to strap that joint down. And when it straps it down, we're going to get that lost imbibition that we mentioned in the disc. So the disc is no longer going to be able to get the nutrients in and the toxins out. And so we call this a joint fixation, where that joint stops moving. Now, another feature of a joint is that it is sending the messages to the brain to tell the brain where the body's in space. So remember when I moved my finger and I knew exactly where that finger was because of the movement comes from mechanoreceptors in the joint that send signaling to the brain anytime that there is movement. So mechanoreceptors are the way that our brain can track where our body is in space, which we call proprioception. Now, when we lose the signaling to the brain, if you strap that joint down and it's no longer moving, the mechanoreceptors are not firing. And now the brain can no longer track accurately what is happening in that joint. And when the brain starts to lose track of what's happening, if it's only getting vague responses about what's happening, the brain will literally start to go into stress mode. And it starts to raise cortisol levels, which are the stress hormones in the body. Now, I was just at the Champlain Valley Fair last weekend, and sure enough, the crowds are all there, the parents are there, the mom's there with their kids, and next thing you know, that one kid lets go of the mom's hand and darts out into the crowd, distracted by something, and suddenly the mom is saying, "Where's my kid?" And then the entire crowd gets stressed until they find the kid and reunite it with its mom. So that stress response, that's kind of like what the brain goes through when it loses track of what's happening in the body, because it loses that proprioception, because the mechanoreceptors are not firing. So any area of the body that gets more rigid and is not moving, that actually can raise cortisol levels and stress hormones. Now, if we are elevating stress hormones, what does that look like? Well, our blood pressure goes up when we have high cortisol. Our heart rate goes up. Muscle tone tenses up. digestion slows down, because this is really a situation that the body was designed for as an adaptive physiology if there was truly a threat to us. Maybe a tiger shows up and we've either got to fight that tiger or we've got to run as fast as we can. And so as soon as we perceive that there is a stress, we raise cortisol levels, and then all of this unfolds. And so digestion, well, it's not a good time to have lunch when you're about to be lunch, right? So this is all about surviving the next minute. The brain just needs the body to survive the next minute when there's stress, and the cortisol levels are perfectly designed for that. And so the other thing that'll happen is reproduction will go down. Not a good time to make babies if there's a tiger around. The serotonin levels go down. Not a good time to sleep, right? And sensory systems go into hyper alert, right? We're hyper focused. We go into tunnel vision. We stop getting that broad gaze that takes in the peripheral vision. We're going into tunnel vision. Fear and anxiety kick up. Insulin sensitivity, very interesting. Our blood sugar will go up, and we purposefully want it to go up so that we can have that fuel instantly for the body to use to be able to fight. And therefore, the insulin sensitivity is going to go down. We're going to have less insulin sensitivity, which is going to allow the blood sugar to stay high for a longer period of time. And then we're also going to see a decrease in the HDLs and increase in the LDLs. So those are going to flip. And the reason for that is that if you have, first of all, in order to make cholesterol and to make any kind of hormones in our body, we need these lipids. And so if you have high levels of cortisol, you're going to need to replace that and make more of it. And so that's why you're going to actually increase the LDLs. Now, cholesterol is also going to go up because cholesterol is what we use to repair tissue when it gets damaged. So the body is anticipating there might be some injuries that are going to happen. So we better be ready so we can stop bleeding with some cholesterol to patch that wound. So that's why cholesterol levels go up when we're stressed. And then the clotting factors for the same reason are going to go up. And our immune response is actually going to be downregulated because the body needs a lot of resources in order to run the immune system. And so at that moment where we're just trying to survive the next minute, we don't want to use those resources for something that takes so much and that is for more long-term. We're going to put it all into survival. And so the immune system downregulates in the strategy that in a few minutes, we're going to be done this stress and then we can kick it back on again. Except that, what if the stresses that we experience are chronic? So what if, our job stress is chronic and our toxic chemicals and that we're putting into our bodies, and we have poor posture and we have subluxations and everything is chronic, then our cortisol levels will stay high. And then this is looking like a heart attack ready to happen here with everything going up with it looks like blood sugar up, heart rate increases, right? It's looking like metabolic syndrome, where we have diabetes and heart attacks and strokes and that kind of thing. And this is all associated with a stress response that is perfect for adapting in the short term, but was never meant to be an ongoing long-term chronic situation. And so when we have subluxations, remember that one of the features to it is that there is nerve irritation. And when we have nerve irritation, that again is going to affect our function. So if we have nerve irritation, we may have pain because of that nerve being irritated, but we may also not have pain, but we still have disturbance in the motor or the autonomic nerves. And so that could start to affect our function. And that could be silent. So it's kind of like a cavity. You don't necessarily feel a cavity in the beginning. By the time you're feeling it, it's already hitting the nerve, right? And it's hitting that pain nerve. And so we can have subluxations that are irritating the nerve, but if they're not irritating the sensory nerves that feel pain, you won't feel pain. And by the time you are feeling pain, it may have gone a lot further, and there may be even more damage. And so when we look at the nerve supply in the body, we can start to actually make sense of why certain people have certain pain or dysfunction. So this is kind of like a circuit breaker. So we know that all these wires that are going out to different rooms in the house, right? These wires in the body or the nervous system are going to certain organ systems in the body. And we know what the map of the nervous system is. So the brain is sending the messages down and the body is sending the messages back up. So first the brain perceives what's happening and then it responds to it. And if you look at the map of the nervous system, you'll see that there's a big nerve right at the top in the neck. And that actually goes to, the heart, the lungs, the stomach, the liver, the small intestine, the pancreas, the large intestine, the adrenals, like all of these organs are controlled from the neck. We also see coming out of the neck, the brachial plexus that comes down. And so that can go down into the arms and so on. And then even in the upper back, this oftentimes is related to neck pain when we have subluxations in the upper back. And that can control heart and lungs and stomach and digestion and so on. So the nerve supply, knowing that map of the nervous system is key because that can help us understand certain body signals that we might be getting. And so some people, they'll have neck pain, that's a body signal, but they're also starting to lose grip strength a bit. Oh, well, it turns out that the nerves that control grip strength are the ones that are coming out of the neck. And so there's another signal for you. And if you understand body language and you understand how to speak body, your body is telling you, you better go get your neck looked at. If you're having pain there and you're also losing function, better go get that neck looked at. And so we want to look at is there a circuit that's blown, right? And so when does a circuit blow? When we have a circuit breaker, when is it that circuit breaks? It's whenever there's overload in the system. And so a subluxation is when there's overload in the system. So anything that overloads us, and think back to the 3 dimensions of stress, physical stresses, mental emotional stresses, chemical stresses, we actually call it the 3 T's: thoughts, toxins, and traumas. So as those accumulate, that can reach a breaking point where now we're getting a subluxation. And if we continue that behavior, we're causing that subluxation to persist. And so as we work with folks, we not only want to help them correct the subluxations, but we need to train them on how to stop recreating those patterns as well. So we can see what the nerve supply is like. And by the way, it is interesting that there is oftentimes people will like lose grip strength when they have subluxations in the neck. And it is interesting that there's studies that show that loss of grip strength is associated with all-cause mortality. That means an earlier death, that when you are losing grip strength, it's a sign, it's a signal that you're moving away from health and you're moving towards an earlier death. They literally have research that shows that. Well, why would that be, just losing grip strength? Well, now you know the answer to that is because those nerves that control the muscles in the hand and the strength, those nerves also are going out to control major organs as well. And then, of course, some of these nerves come up and go up into the head and the vision and hearing and all of those kinds of things as well. So when people have joint misalignment, soft tissue damage, inflammation, all these things that we've covered, when you do have the subluxations, you may start to get arthritis in the neck, but also in the hands. So people will show up in my office with, oh yeah, my hands don't work so well, especially when the weather goes crazy, right? I've just got this arthritis. And then, sure enough, what we find is that once we start to correct the nerve supply in the neck, we'll start to see greater function even in the hands. And that's sometimes even before and after an adjustment, we can have a noticeable difference that fast. So oftentimes when people have trouble with the neck, subluxations in the neck, they'll start to also share that they've got trouble with their shoulder, their arm, their elbow, tennis elbow, golf elbow, rotator cuff problems, the wrist, carpal tunnel, and so on, hand problems, trigger fingers, all of those kinds of things. I've helped so many people with those because 90% of the time, if not more than that, we do find that it's associated with the neck. And I've had so many carpal tunnel issues just clear up and actually prevent people from having surgery just by actually working with the neck and getting that as clear as possible. So the subluxation, again, is causing nerve irritation, and that interferes with the body's innate ability to heal and remain healthy. Now, this is an x-ray of the neck, and I just want you to notice that here we have a curve in the neck forward. This one, we have a reversal of that curve. So you can have subluxations with having a curve, but you're going to have less chance of subluxations if you do have that curve. Now, if you lose that curve, we can see damage that's happening here because now we're going to get jamming. So having a forward curve in the neck is the give in the spine that you need. And if you lose that, then we're going to start to get jamming. And that jamming can create some degenerative change here as well. Now, I want you to also notice that with a curve in the neck, there's some key things here. And the key things are that that curve, actually, it's like a bow and arrow. So a bow, right? A bow is curved, and the string that the arrow is going to sit on is taut. And that string being taut is how it's going to have its greatest function as a bow. Now, if the bow loses its curve and it straightens out, now you can't really work a bow and arrow very well if the bow doesn't have that shape. So the muscles in the neck are designed to work best if you have a forward curve. And you have muscles that go from the bottom of the neck right up to the base of the skull. So you have muscles that go from here to here. And if you have a forward curve, those muscles are going to work really well. But if you lose that curve, that's going to put a lot of tension on those muscles. And a lot of people describe their neck pain as, I just have neck tension. And so you can see if you've lost the biomechanics there, if it's gone straight, now all those muscles in the back of the neck are going to be under extreme amounts of tension. And if they are under tension, then they're going to be pulling on the back of the skull. And oftentimes people will report that their neck tension, or what we call cervicogenic headaches, are happening right at the base of the skull. And that's right where all those muscles are attaching. And there's this amazing study that just came out not too long ago either. It was, let's see, it was in 2018 is when it came out. And this was extraordinary. They had 1,200 subjects that were ranged in ages from 18 to 86. And they found that they started to grow a horn on the back of their skull, and they linked it to phone and computer use. And this was like, I said, a horn-like growth, what are they talking about? And then I read the study. And so what they found is that right on the base of the skull. Now, I will tell you that I studied x-rays. I was not an x-ray tech, but I was a blue coat in chiropractic school, which means that I specialized in learning how to take and read x-rays. And whenever I would look at x-rays, the back of the head would just be smooth here, right along the back of the head here. So here's the jaw, here's the back of the head. And what they started to find were these horns that were growing here. Now, what would cause that? Well, if the muscles are really tight on the back of the neck, and those muscles are attached right here, if you tug on bone, that bone is living tissue, it must respond. And so it literally starts to grow bone where there's constant stress, because anytime that you need to grow bone in an area, right, it's usually because you have to toughen it up. So it's better to have more bone there if you're going to have constant stress there. It's the body's design. It's an adaptive response as well. It's just trying to keep you healthy and deal with the stresses that you have. So literally it would grow these horns here in the back of the head. And, here's another one. You can see it right here. Here's another one. This is not anything that I saw in my 40 years of checking x-rays. We never saw anything like this. And so this is a recent phenomenon. And this paper was written in 2018. And they said that the cause of it, they think it's the tech neck posture. And the reason they say that is that after looking at all of the x-rays, they found that 41% of the participants had the horn-like growths. And when they looked at it, it was the 18 to 30-year-olds that had it. So they had subjects that were up to 86 years old, and they didn't have the horns. The horns were showing up in the 18 to 30-year-olds, which were, especially at that time, that was the age of the population that was using cell phones and having computers and using them the most. And so that was one of the ways that they linked it. So it's very plausible because of the biomechanics, understanding how that works, why the bone would grow there. And then we just linked it to our unnaturally modern, stressful lifestyle. So literally smartphones are transforming our bodies as a result of their use, and it's in a really bad way. So the human skeleton is not designed to sit and stare at a device. And so we're seeing these signs of adaptation everywhere around us. People are also experiencing tight hips from sitting too much, and the forward head posture is now showing these, horns that are showing up. So the research confirms it, that it is a big problem. Now, when we find people that are struggling with neck pain and we look at, well, where are the most common subluxations in the spine? It's usually going to be truly in the neck, but also the upper back. T1 through 5 is a very common area of subluxation for people that are struggling with neck pain. And again, it makes sense because those muscles are going from the upper back right up to the base of the skull. And so again, just recognizing what's happening posturally, what's happening to the biomechanics. It's this lifestyle habit, it's the micro traumas, it's the posture that is leading to the subluxations. And so here we are, a 45-degree tilt, it's already increasing the weight of that 10, 15-pound head to 49 pounds. A 60-degree tilt is 60 pounds. A 75-degree tilt is 70 pounds. And I see people walking around like this and younger ages in our population. And then, oh, here's the solution. Just take that head off. Now there's no more weight on the head, just gone, right? Okay, good short-term strategy, but not a good long-term strategy. The studies are showing that the average person is spending 2 to 4 hours a day with their heads tilted forward for reading and for texting on their phones. And that is just creating 700 to 1,400 hours of excess abnormal cervical spine stress every year. A high school student may even spend an extra 5,000 hours in poor posture every year. And so it's, and again, what happened in the last 4 years when we had all the locking down and, stay shelter in place, like more and more people were on devices than ever before. So you can imagine what it is now. So, I have people that come in with extreme pain in their neck, shoulder, arm, hand. This one fellow that came in, he actually had sleep apnea as well. He had chronic fatigue, and he literally couldn't drive. He needed somebody to get him to his appointment because the pain was so bad. He couldn't work, and so now the income wasn't coming in. He couldn't play ball with his boy, and it was bad. And so he found us on Facebook. Some of you find us that way as well. And he came in, he had the full exam, he followed the recommendations, and don't you know, he was able to get back to work, able to start exercising again. He got his energy back, no more brain fog, and he could play ball with his boys. So it really changed his quality of life. So if you or someone you love is struggling with tech neck, right? You know who you are. You know how long you're on your devices, right? It's definitely something that can lead to so many issues. And so what do we do to correct these issues? I want to just name one more piece here before I go into what we do to correct it, the popping and the cracking. So people, again, ask me, hey, I pop my neck and it just seems to feel like it gives me relief. And so I want you to know that I'm not so concerned about the sound that it's making. The sound is, it's an exchange of gases. It's like that. That's what it is. People ask me, what is that? It's an exchange of gases. So if you move a joint, it makes gases move in one direction or the other. And we actually call it spinal flatulence, an exchange of gases. However, the fact that you find relief with that tells us that you're trying to drop tension from the bones and the joints. But if we look at the spine, it's made of 3 systems. The bones and the joints, the skeletal system is one. The muscles are the second subsystem. And the spinal cord and the nervous system is the third subsystem. And what we want to see is that if you are building stress up, yes, we need you to perhaps try to reduce those stresses. However, if we had you get better at adapting to those stresses, you're going to need to use all 3 systems in your body to be able to do that, and not just try to rely on the structure to keep burping the Tupperware and trying to release it. And so we want to see that you start to drop tension through the muscles releasing tension. And when you take a deep breath in, that's a sign that the nervous system is dropping tension. And there's other ways that we measure that as well. So the popping and cracking in of itself may not be a concern, but if it's repeated, like if it happens as a one-off thing, I'm not concerned about that. But if somebody is doing it habitually, then I start to get concerned, because it tells me that whatever they're doing, they're not actually addressing the cause of it. They keep recreating it, and all the subsystems are not working together to try and reduce that tension. And then the other part of it is oftentimes it can create a hypermobility. So when you crack the neck, the part that is actually subluxated may not release, but the joint above or below may release. So it gives you a sense of relaxation, but it may be just making the joints on either side of the fixated joint become hypermobile instead of all of them sharing an equal amount of mobility. Another success story, a fellow came in, he had intense neck pain. It was radiating into his arm and his upper back. He couldn't sleep, he couldn't work, and he had 2 small kids, and he was divorced. So there were times when it was full time, all up to him to take care of those kids. And so he got under care, he started to get some good results. And then this was a few years ago. And so then suddenly COVID happens, and he actually paused his care because of the COVID and the shelter in place. And he just thought, I better just, not go anywhere. So he didn't come in for his adjustments. And then lo and behold, no surprise, he has a flare up because he hasn't been taking care of his spine. And so he came back under care. He got it under control. He was able to get back to work, and he was able to start taking care of his kids again, started working with a personal trainer. He added yoga in, so he got his life back. But it just showed that even though he was feeling better, because he didn't really do what he needed to do to really get his spine healthier with all of our recommendations, he did have a flare up that returned. So our care is designed to not only correct the cause of the problem, but also to teach you how to stop recreating it. So that's how we do it. We have 3 steps to correct the cause. We need to break the bad habits, add specific exercises, and chiropractic adjustments. So when we talk about tech neck, that can be a bad habit. Your posture is a habit, and you need to actually pay attention to it. And don't look around you and use the others around you as a model, because way too many people have bad posture. So I really want you to think of, in the old days when grandma said, sit up straight, right? She really had your best intentions in mind and didn't realize that she actually may have been preventing problems in the future. So tech neck is a postural, it's a bad habit. And there are other bad habits that we have. So when we talk about the bad habits, remember, it's going to be how you eat, how you move, and how you think. So just like we had those 3 dimensions to stress, the 3 T's, thoughts, toxins, and traumas, how you think, how you move, and how you eat are the 3 categories that we want to change the bad habits into good habits. So the first one we think of as how you eat, right? You want to make sure that you're eating an anti-inflammatory diet, but there are certain oils in a conventional diet that have gone way out of balance. So perhaps you need an oil change. So the typical American has a bad diet that has way too much omega-6s, and those omega-6s, they come in the form of grains and bad oils, the vegetable oils and so on that are omega-6 rich. Now we need a little bit of omega-6, but the balance is what's off. And we have in the conventional American diet way too many omega-6s. And so right now, the average person has 90% omega-6s and only 3% of the omega-10, only 10% of the omega-3s. Now, we need both because in the structure of our membranes and in the structure of the blood vessel walls, we need to have both structure, but we also need to have some flexibility, some suppleness. And so in our cell membranes, we need both of these oils, the omega-6s and the omega-3s. The omega-6s provide the structure. The omega-3s are what provide the flexibility. And so when you get too rigid in your cell membranes, then the receptor sites don't work as well. And now we start to have breaking down of function in the cellular function. If we look at our endothelium in our blood vessels, if the blood vessels if we have too much omega-6, the blood vessels become too rigid. And that actually will cause an increase in blood pressure and can be related to all kinds of concerns, including plaquing and so on. Whereas if we have flexibility in the walls of our blood vessels that comes with the right omega-3 balance, then that flexibility is associated with lower blood pressure as well as with a reduction in plaquing. So when we look at the good and the bad here, an ideal diet is going to give us that one-to-one relationship where we have 50% of the omega-3s, 50% of the omega-6s. That's ideal. But again, in the modern American lifestyle, we have that 90%, 10%, and that's inflammatory when it's at that levels and versus the anti-inflammatory. And when it's inflammatory, there's going to be more pain with it. It's just the way it goes. So eating an anti-inflammatory diet is going to lead to less pain. Another thing to look at with what you're eating is other types of supplements. And so when we want to pick the right fish oil as a supplement, that can be a way to reconcile that imbalance in the omega-3s is just by taking a fish oil. Fish oil automatically has the right balance of the omega-6s and omega-3s, and that actually helps to reconcile if we have too much coming into our diet. So, but how do you pick the right fish oil? So there's a few ways to look at that. The first is the visual test. So when you look at the oil itself, it should be clear, not cloudy. If it's cloudy, it will be a sign that it has gone rancid. So if you can gaze into that little gel of that fish oil, or if it's in a bottle, if you look at the liquid itself, it should not be cloudy. Then there's the bite test, and the bite test is going to allow you to smell it and then to taste it. So many times we're just swallowing these pills and we're not really even sure what's inside. And sure, there's going to be a fish smell to it, but it shouldn't be a rancid fish smell. So everybody knows what rancid milk smells like, rancid oils. We know it's a very offensive smell. So when you do the bite test, you would just want to make sure that it's not a rancid, low quality fish oil. They may be using old fish oil and it may be rancid. And then finally, you want to look at what is it stabilized with, what kinds of antioxidants. So these are the healthy forms of stabilizers: vitamin E, rosemary, lemon oil, and astaxanthin. And check the expiration date because there is a shelf life to this, and the shelf life, if you go beyond that, then you run the risk of it being rancid. What about the difference between fish oil that's a liquid versus the soft gels? Well, if you're really out of balance and you need some high doses of liquid fish oil, then just getting a fish oil, the liquid is going to be the easiest way to get a lot of it in. If you have any difficulty swallowing capsules, then the liquid is a solution for that. However, the gel caps, they tend to be more stable, so the liquid will oxidize a bit faster, so the shelf life will be longer with a capsule. If you really are sensitive to the taste, don't like the taste in the liquids, then again, the capsule would be the way to go. And for youngsters, the liquid, of course, is going to be the solution there. And yes, indeed, youngsters also, oftentimes, they need to have the right fish oils. I don't know if you remember, but in the old days, it was cod liver oil. You know, have the kids line up with their mouth open, and here's the school nurse or the teacher giving them their tablespoons of cod liver oil. So for many, many years, we have known the benefits of a good fish oil. Now, another supplement that can be useful is turmeric. Turmeric is a very powerful anti-inflammatory. What I like about the Mediherb Turmeric Forte is it's the only one that I know of that is infused with fenugreek. And fenugreek is something that allows it to be absorbed more easily. And when it's absorbed more easily, then you're going to get more bang for your buck. So digesting or just taking in the spice turmeric, like if you're eating Indian food, only 6% of that is actually absorbed into your body to be used in your joints and in your neck and so on. Whereas the turmeric forte, it's 26 times more absorbable than just the regular spice of turmeric. Now, for some people, they also like the Boswellia product. Boswellia is another name for frankincense. And Mediherb's Boswellia complex has frankincense, which is also a potent anti-inflammatory, but it also has the turmeric in it as well. And the Boswellia is very well designed for joints. And so neck pain, right? We get a lot of joints in our neck. And so many people, they do well with the Boswellia. And then another thing is the hemp oil. Now, I'll let you know that people that are in my office, I actually test them to see which is going to be the right one for them. So we can be very specific with the amounts and which combinations. For some people, they do best with a combination even of all three of these. Now, the hemp oil, the reason I love this hemp oil is because it actually is a full spectrum hemp oil. So the endocannabinoid system is it regulates so many processes in the body. And it optimizes and balances the immune and the endocrine, the hormonal systems, and the nervous system. And again, it inactivates the cells that are pro-inflammation, that are pushing inflammation. And the entourage effect means that we're using the full spectrum, meaning we're using the seed as well as the stalk. And the seed and the stalk have different benefits. So the entourage effect means you're getting the full range of those benefits. The hemp oil, it's non-GMO. It uses calamari oil. And then it also adds something called true broc, which is like a form of broccoli. And that activates the NRF2 pathways, which again, the NRF2 is another way of addressing inflammation in the body too. So it has so many great benefits to it. There is another CBD product that I have found tests very strong. And I'll tell you what, I have so many people that come by my office with samples of their version of their CBD, and patients will bring in their gummies and all these other CBD products. And I'm happy to test people with them to make sure they're doing what they say they're going to do and that they're working for those people. And I will tell you that more often than not, they don't test very strongly. So the two that so far have tested the strongest that I've found are the MediHerb hemp oil complex and this particular product that's known as Hygieia. And I actually have been working with this product for many years, and it's gone through different branding. Different people have bought the company, but they keep making it exactly the same way. And I love this product. So if some of you have been with me for a while, this used to be called Verum, and then it was changed to optimized CBD, and now the new name is Hygieia. So you can rely on what its benefits are. And the reason why I love this one is it has the highest recorded bioavailability. So it means that when you're just like the turmeric, how much you can get into your body is going to mean how powerful it is. So it actually has up to 20 times more bioavailability than some of the conventional ones. It's also very stable. And it doesn't have degradation as it goes through the stomach, and it actually can get through the stomach into the intestines where it can be absorbed back into the body, where it can do its work. And it's also 100% water soluble, which is why it makes it so optimally absorbable. And it also has these 2 layers of how it's made. So because it has a second layer, then when it goes through the stomach, that's why it's protected, so that when it gets into the intestines, it's available. And it also is one of the only CBD products that actually has its own scientific studies done. Many times people refer to kind of the generic CBD and not necessarily their product that's been tested, and this one does. So therefore, because it's so potent, it actually has the lowest cost effectiveness because you don't need as much to get the same benefits. So again, it's something we carry right here in the office. Hygieia CBD is what it's called. So that's how you eat. And now we look at how you move. And so how you move, we want to look at exercises you can be doing. And these exercises are designed to reconcile that poor posture that we have from the use of devices and the way our modern world is designed. So this first exercise, we call it the life extension exercises. And it has an acronym, YWLT. We like to use the sentence, "You will love this," YWLT, so that it helps you to remember it. And so when you do this, basically you're going to be putting your arms in these different positions. If you remember, YMCA was a song a few years ago. I'm dating myself now, right? Yeah. And so we used to dance and we used to do the letters, right? Well, YWLT. So Y is putting your arms right up over your head, stretching them up. And you want to actually be stretching your fingers as far out from your body as you can. And so you're going to stretch them out. And it's not right up close to your ears, but out to the side like a Y. And you're going to hold it for 20 seconds, just stretching it out as far as you can. And then take a couple breaths as you do that. Now, when you're doing this one, remember, I'm going to turn to the side because you want your you want your arms to be right up in line with your ears, so not out in front. Now, in the beginning, some of you may have just rigid posture and restrictions and tension, so that's as high as you can go. But over time, you just want to keep coming back so that you can get it right in the plane of your body, as if there's a wall right in front of you and right behind you. And so your arms need to be right next to your ears as you do that. So that's the Y. The W is simply keeping that same position, but bending your elbows. So now you're going to try and get your elbows down into your pockets. So try to push your elbows right down into your back pockets. And then you're going to hold that for that same 20 seconds. The third one is the L, which is just coming out with your arm as an L. And you want to do this again with your arms as wide as you can, so your scapula, your wing bones are kind of coming together. And you want to do it so that if you're looking out at the horizon, you can't see your fingers wiggling in your peripheral vision. So if they're bent in, you're going to see them, but if you can get them really wide, then you won't see them, right? And then the T is extending the arms outright, so you're making a T. Same thing, just stretching out as far as you can. And again, in the plane line of the body, right? Not out in front. So that's the life extension exercises, YWLT. Then there's the wall nod. The wall nod exercise is one where you're going to stand against a wall and you're going to make sure that the back of your head, the back of your back and your shoulders, your butt and your heels are all against the wall. And then the rule is that you're going to keep everything against the wall as you nod your head up, looking up as far as you can, and then down, looking down as far as you can. So if I were to do that and my head was against the wall, as I looked up, I can't have my shoulders come off the wall. So the shoulders stay on the wall as you look up. And then when you look down, the head cannot come off the wall. So when you look down, you're going to feel the real stretch. And that stretch is going to be at the very top and the very bottom of your neck is where you're going to notice it. So if you do 5 nods twice a day, that is how you do the wall nod exercise. Now, we also want to teach you preparing the spine for sleep. And so at the end of the day, if we could start to reform the curves in the spine that we lost from being in a hunched posture, then that's only going to be good. And so for the sleep prep exercises, you're going to start by rotating your body around 20 times back and forth, just to get some motion into the discs and into the spine. And that makes the discs more malleable when you do that. So you rotate back and forth, and then you're going to lie down, and you can use these dowels. I have one right here as an example. So you can use these dowels that we carry here in the office to put underneath your neck and then underneath your low back. But you can also use towels. And so you would just roll the towels up in a certain way. You use bath towels. And so when you roll the towels up, you'll notice that you want to fold them in on either side so there's a space in the middle. And when you roll it up tight, then that space is where the spinous process is going to sit. So you're either using the towels or the dowels. Then you're going to just lie for 20 minutes so that the spine can then remold into a more of a curved shape. And over time, this will add more and more suppleness to your spine so that it is more and more curvable. And so again, we just always want to remember forward at the neck is the optimum curve, not a straight or a reverse curve. For some people, the dowels and the towel are uncomfortable, and we do have this other product that we call the neck vitalizer. And the neck vitalizer is something that we use where you have a hand pump and you pump it up, you put it under your upper back, and it helps to just reconcile people that are getting into too much of a hunched posture. So again, you do your rotations first for 20 minutes, and then, for 20 times back and forth, and then you lie on the neck vitalizer and pump that up with your hand pump so it's comfortable for you. So some people may be wondering, well, how would I even know if I had a subluxation? And so in our office, we identify the presence of the subluxation through 5 objective criteria. We use instrumentation where we're measuring the nerve supply to the muscles, the nerve supply to the organs. We can look at how well you're adapting to your stress, ranges of motion, and so on. We also, I'm gonna palpate the spine and feel, is there give in the joints? Is there motion in the joints? I'm going to do static palpation just to see, is the vertebrae misaligned? And then visualization is assessing the posture. And so when we look at the posture, we can see if there are imbalances. So even when people are just standing there and they think that they're looking straight ahead, we may notice that they're actually skewed off to one side, or as they're standing upright, their head is actually forward instead of having the head right over the shoulders. So we do a very specific analysis of the posture as well. And then x-rays tell us so much about what's inside, because oftentimes people that come in with neck pain will take an x-ray and will realize that even though they had a recent episode that just started, we look at the x-rays and we see degenerative change. And that degenerative change tells us that their problem actually started a long time ago, because it takes time for that degenerative change to show up in the spine. So many people have no clue. I have people coming in that have no neck pain at all. They have low back pain. And when we take our x-rays, we see they even have degenerative change in the neck, even though they don't have pain. So important to look at that. Just like when you go to the dentist, they want to take the x-rays of your teeth. They want to do a thorough observation. And that's because they're using objective criteria to define it. And so we do the same objective criteria when we're looking at the presence of subluxations. And then we work together to correct the cause. So breaking the bad habits, poor posture, what you're eating, how you're thinking, helping you manage stress more effectively, adding the specific exercises in to train you so you stop recreating the patterns, and we can just get that spine stronger and stronger to reduce the incidence of relapses from occurring. And then the specific chiropractic adjustments to correct the subluxations in the spine, so that frees up the nervous system. The brain gets more accurate information about where the body is in space, and you lose that that restriction that happens when you have the subluxations. So then cortisol levels come down, and you get all the benefits of having a clear nerve supply. So how would you know if you had a subluxation? You'd have to get checked. And so if you're already in the practice, you know that we do check you regularly. On every visit, we're checking you, and then periodically we're doing our scans of the nervous system and our posture analysis. If you're not in the practice and you're curious, please reach out to us and let us know that you would like to get checked, and we can schedule a time for us to have a consultation, and then we can even invite you to come into the office. So I hope that you all had your action steps, taking notes. And remember that procrastination is the thief of health. A lot of people have that terrible phrase they use of maybe it will go away. And if that's the one you're using to try and manage it, like hoping it's going to go away, well, you know how those things turn out, right? If you procrastinate, things usually get worse. They get more expensive. They get harder to fix. And in some cases, it may get to the point where it's not correctable. And I really wish that that doesn't happen to you. So the sooner you take action, the better. Please start right away incorporating the exercises if you don't already do them. Please look closely at your diet and making sure you have the right balance of the omega-3s, and that you can be addressing inflammation in your diet and in your body. And then if you do not have somebody that you're working with that's checking your spine and nervous system, please reach out and let us know. Even if you're not in our area, we oftentimes can find somebody we can refer you to near you. So thank you so much for your time and attention. And again, send us a text if you are interested in the headache workshop, if you're curious about the CBD that we have, if you want to schedule a consultation, just reach out to us and we're happy to help. And that is our program. So thank you again so much for your time and attention. And now I'm going to, let's see, here we go. There we go. Thank you so much. And again, share this with others. If you found it was useful, then we would love you to share it with others. Thanks.